I'm a Southerner. I talk a little slower, but you're still going to want to get a paper and pencil out because I'm going to give you a bunch of laws and documents and where y'all can get information on the biochip, chemtrails, and so on. My hour presentation, 50-some-odd minute presentation, is always on how to get the documents into the people's hands. While you're all looking for paper and pen, I'm going to give you a little bit of my background so you know who I am. I have been in this for about 20 years. Besides growing up a CIA brat. One of my uncles guarded Joseph Mengele and drove him around for Operation Paperclip. My dad trained CIA assassins, OSS assassins. After World War II, one of my uncles designed the North American defense system, the DEW line. I have been consulting on ritual abuse crimes for 14 years for police and counselors and therapists. I've been teaching counselors and therapists on MK Ultra, Project Monarch, Marionette, and ritual abuse for 14 years. I've been writing, this is our 4th book, which will be on CIA and mind control. We have thousands of released documents on mind control and CIA, the beginnings of the microchip and so on. We're going to compile it and throw it in a book, and hopefully we're going to have it out by the end of the year. Oh, don't do that to me. Get all these cameras looking at me. So I guess I'm semi-qualified to talk. I come at biochip, lithium chip, and chemtrail from a different perspective. I come at it from the mind control perspective. Back in 1953, when MK Ultra was being formed after Operation Paperclip, and I'll go into a lot of that later, they had a project called MK Delta. Now, MK Delta was the electronic end of the mind control, the LSD experiments, and all of what people know as Project Monarch. When they started to split people after the war, they figured that when they split somebody, you have an ultra split from the personality and you have an amnesic wall. And that's a real basic thing. And as you build structure, you build alters and you build amnesic walls and so on, and I'll go into that later. But as that amnesic wall over a week, a month, or 6 months will start to deteriorate, and the only way they could find to take that amnesic wall and keep it in place was either electroshock or some kind of chemical. So they just started in '53 to develop an implantable chip by Mr. Delgado and IBM.
One of the guys that was in that program was a guy named Professor Delgado. He got the idea to take it in a bigger animal. When he saw that we could control the behavior with the wired device, he said, what if we do it wirelessly? So he checked it in monkeys and checked it in bulls, and it turned out you can do it wirelessly with RFID chips and semiconductors. Then the CIA took it to the next level. They said, well, since this is electromagnetic radiation and they begin on wirelessly, what if we did it through light through screens? And it turns out you can.
And they started to implant a microchip, and they started to draw up the plans for a biological chip in 1953 under the MK Delta program. So this is not new technology. They may want you to think it is, but it's not. Now I'm going to do a whole bunch of laws here so that you get an idea that your government isn't really telling you a whole lot. All of this can be found on the web. My website, which I should probably give you, which is www.psychops.com. And I'm talking slow today. I was born on the West Coast, and I can really talk fast. Okay, first of all, the USCS law on chemical and biological warfare actually it was ratified in the 40s, but this is a copy from the 60s. This is Law 1520, gives the government the right to experiment on us with radiation, chemicals, or otherwise without our knowledge and permission, only to be reported to the World Health Organization every 10 years. Of course, you all knew that, right? 1989 Immigration and Control Act, signed by another president besides this one, George Bush, gives the government, the president and Congress the right to implant an electronic medium microchip under the skin without your permission. I'll do that again. because there's too many mouths hanging open. 1989 Immigrations and Control Act, that's a lot of the welfare titles that were changed, for tracking. They gave them the right to implant an electronic medium under the skin, microchip. Now I'll go into all this nice stuff in a few minutes. William Jefferson Clinton in 1989 signed one of those public laws taking the biological manufacturing companies of vaccinations, flu shots, and biochips and made them harmless so you cannot sue them anymore. And that was 1989, August 13th, 1989. It's the Biological Act of 1979, and 50 U.S.C. 2041 is off the code of 1979, which is part of the experimental laws. Which means if your kids get sick from a vaccination or a flu shot, you can't sue the vaccination or flu shot makers anymore. So what they're going to do is take the waivers away and say, oh, this is really safe. But if you ever ask if you can sue them, no, you can't. They're blameless. Also in the manufacturing of the biochip, now a biochip is made of biological material. There's no metal in it, silicone in it. It's total biological material. And I'll get into a lot of detail on this in a minute. Is made by these same manufacturing companies. Matter of fact, it's made in the Denver area. Now, the Biological Act was ratified in front of the 105th Congress, which Congress also ratified that the biological companies of the vaccination makers, the anthrax vaccination makers, are now blameless, which Public Law 105-230 was ratified before full Congress. Of course, you all knew that, right? So what are they going to do? How are they going to put this thing in? What's going on? What's coming down? I heard a little news report, which I really enjoyed. Here's one of the newspapers to go with it. This is in Medford, Oregon, Washington, California, and a whole bunch of other states. January 1st are going to martial law. Now, Clinton signed an executive order, which is still kept top secret, which I've seen a copy of. I don't have a copy of it with me. When I don't have a document, I'm going to tell you. But I'm going to tell you that there's a law on the books that was signed in last year, which was amendment to FEMA and the prison camp administration laws that gives the government the right to implant microchips to buy and sell with 3 days after we go into FEMA, martial law. Now, if you all don't understand what I'm talking about, most of you have heard of Iridium. Okay. I have a friend who's in Special Forces who came back after Desert Storm, excuse me. And I was living in a little town in Texas, Orange, Texas, which is right halfway between the Cajuns in Louisiana and Houston. And it's in the middle of nowhere. It's just flat oil land with swamps. And my buddy came back after Desert Storm and said, here, I want to show you something. Look at this. And he took me by the hand, put me in the car, and said, drive me to Kmart. He pulled 3 things off the shelf in Kmart, and this is early 90s now. And he said, look at this. Feel this. I have a chip in my hand. He said, scan those things to the cash register lady. And then he took his hand and scanned it, and he paid for it, and he walked out. And my mouth kind of hit the ground for a minute, and he said, well, we've been communicating back and forth in Special Forces with these biochips since before the end of the Vietnam War. And there's a satellite system all set up called the LEO system that's all ready to go. And it's so ready to go that you can buy and sell with it. The officers in Special Forces will go to the airport and they have a scanner on the military end, and they scan out to see what flight they're on. All the records are kept on chips in their hands. This is nothing new, believe me. I'll give you a few newspaper articles. This is the Chicago Tribune. Tiny little chip may get under your skin. You can get this in the Chicago Library. Tuesday, May 7th, 1996. Talks about an implantable microchip, biochip. If you want a really must-have, this is called Electronic Leash. It's 7 pages long. It's by the Tucson Weekly, which is a weekly magazine. June 15th to the 21st, 1994, and you can get it in the library in Tucson. This goes into the implantable biochip, which was originally put together by Hughes Aircraft and MIT. And it's 1/200th the size of a hair, made out of biological material, non-X-rayable. You shoot this thing with a regular hypodermic into the flesh. This is not something you're going to swallow, eat, or run in the bloodstream. It is driven off of alkalinity in your body. So, we have this biological chip that's going into legs and arms. Now, since 1993 to 94, in the general public, through vaccinations and flu shots, they have been putting biochips. There are 12 million plus biochips in the population right now. According to a Denver police officer, if you know the number of a person, you can track them within 10 feet anywhere in the world. I've known this for a number of years. I have an affidavit from a manufacturer and some other things, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But in the local police car, they can tap the number in, and they can look you up anywhere in the world, even in the local police level, off the internet. Now, what about the numbers? How do they get them? Well, when you get a vaccination and flu shot number, when I get through my biochip stuff, I'll take questions for a couple of minutes. And then I'm going to go on to lithium chip, and then I got to go on to chemtrail, and I only got an hour. So, what are the numbers? You take them when you get a vaccination number, each vaccination number, and these are preloaded vaccinations. Each one has a number, writes into your medical record, goes into Iridium. Look it up on the satellite the minute it's punched into the Iridium system. All your records are being dumped into the Iridium right now. All your medical records, without your permission. Give you a good example. I speak for the preparedness circuit, and I was in Philadelphia, and a man from Johnson & Johnson came up to me, the vaccination manufacturer. He had heard me on Art Bell. By the way, I've been on Art Bell twice in the last 8 weeks. And he had gotten in my face and said, I heard you on Art Bell, and you need to explain to people that they need to take these biochips. This is the best thing they can possibly get, because not only does it track their kids, but it's going to help them think because it's a programmable chip. Because the American people are stupid. Now, this is a 3-day show, and at the end of my show, the last day, I had a friend of mine with Special Forces with me. I have several of them. And he had gone to go back to Fort Bragg, and there was a colonel who came up to me and played the sergeant thing in my face. And I'm standing behind my table, and I'm kind of looking at him, and I've been raised military, and I carry myself pretty good. This guy is about an inch out of my face, leaning over across my table, and he's saying, you're giving out national defense secrets, and this is the only way we can extract our soldiers. This is the only way we can communicate with our soldiers. This is the only way we can kill our soldiers if we have to. And I came at him, and I said, but, sir, don't you cross the line of constitutional rights when you don't tell them you're putting the chip in? Second back flu shot in Desert Storm was microchip. And he stepped back and he looked me square in the eyes and said, my soldiers do not need to think for themselves, and they do not have constitutional rights. They're stupid. They think you're stupid. They think you're sheeple. You really need to go get these documents. We've got videos and audios. I'm going to do my 2-second commercial. My workshop is going to be on the history of microchip, biochip, and then I'm going to go into mind control programming, and I'm going to show you how to take programming apart, something that nobody else does. We'll show you how it's put together and how you can give you a brief overview in 3 hours of how to take programming apart, something probably nobody else will do for you. Let's go to another piece of newspaper. This is from the St. Peter's Journal in St. Peter's, Missouri, Sunday, March 3rd, 1996. Excuse me. Yeah, 1996. Where Mayor Tom Brown wants to make the city of St. Peter's, Missouri, the first city in the United States that everybody has to have 2 microchips, 1 in each ear. That way they can get rid of their phone system, their intercoms, and all this stuff. One is a tracking chip, and the other one is a communication chip so they can talk to the satellites and talk to each other in town. Now this is 1996. This is a city mayor talking about this. Of course you all knew this, right? This has all been in the press. You all been told about this. You've been briefed. So this is St. Peter's, Missouri. They still give you a copy of this if you call them. Matter of fact, they're enjoying all the attention they're getting from us. Arizona Republic, Thursday, July 20th, 1989. It's the state section, and this is the KidScan program. And KidScan is a program where in Miami, Florida, in 1989, they implanted 8,000 kids with biochips with a regular hypodermic. Of course, you all knew that. Let's see. Tucson Citizen goes into the numbering system that there are 92 billion numbers for these microchips, so they can give everybody at least 2. Now for the most interesting piece I have on me. Everybody heard of the Department of Energy? Their website's going to get a lot of hits. You want a pen and paper. This is the Department of Energy's website on the biochip. It's a 2-year-old announcement. It's www.doe.gov/biochip. HTM. And it's the announcement of medical uses of biochips. It's 2 years old. It's still on the web. Beautiful color thing comes up. And then you go in a couple of pages and you get the argon announcement, which is the same website. And it's the announcement of Argonne, Motorola, Packard Bell to develop the biochip technology and to mass produce the biochip technology for other uses with billions of your tax dollars for implantable microchip. It's on the web. See, they think you all are so stupid you're not going to go look on the web. And if you believe this, that people are going to call you crazy. But there are so many documents out there right now I can go to a website right now and I can order chips to implant in my friends to track them and program them. All the technology is out there. One last newspaper article. Washington Times, October 11th, 1993. Martin Anderson goes into Hughes Aircraft and how they helped develop the biochip. Okay, here's the information that I get asked for the most. What do I do? How do I tell I have a biochip or a microchip? Okay, this is not to be confused with a lithium chip. Now, a lithium chip has plexiglass with metal ends run off a lithium battery. And in the 60s, they were implanted in teeth a lot. A lot of people heard radio signals in your teeth. Unfortunately, you're a candidate for a microchip. They've been implanting them since 1958 in the general public. Those are X-rayable. And I'll get into the lithium chip in a few minutes, including a Brazilian television commercial for the microchip that you all are going to want to see. But first, let's talk about the biochip. The biochip is biodegradable. It will come apart. There's a flaw in it. And one of the manufacturers of the biochip sat down with me for several hours in Denver last year when I was at the Denver Preparedness Expo. And I started telling him a little bit of what I know. He got wider and wider and wider and about passed out. And I had to walk with him to the bathroom a couple of times because he was just getting so scared. How do you know all this? Well, I have friends in the NSA and the CIA, and one of my uncles is still in the agency, and they've been passing me information. And he said, but this is top secret. Nobody's supposed to know but 15 people. And And I'm speaking on the platform at Preparedness about his secrets. And he's just getting wider and wider and wider and about passed out. Now, first of all, let's cover alkalinity and acid and what this is all about. In 43 to 53, they started to develop a biological chip with a biological battery. And they tried acid and they tried alkaline in the body by running a biological system. And this is nanotechnology. And they realized that it would not run an acid. So they started changing all the biological warfare weapons. I'm going to repeat this again. All your biological warfare weapons, all your bacteria that goes with the biological warfare weapons thrive in alkalinity. Y'all catch that? Do I need to repeat that again? Okay. Good group. I don't have too many deer in the headlights yet. So they started to devise stuff to run in alkalinity. Now the biochip, if you want to find out if you got one, you go to your local Walmart or drugstore and you get a swimming pool tester. Now this sounds stupid, but the chemicals that they're using, if you just test your pH, it's going to give you a straight pH of your balanced. But if you check your alkalinity against your pH, you're going to find that your pH, your alkalinity is at 7.8, 7.10, which is the sign of alkalosis. Now, alkalosis, when you get to that point, will give you upper respiratory problems and flu-like symptoms. And when you get to 7.8 to 7.10, it makes you have the same effects as Luvox. It's a mind, it puts you in a delusional state, according to most medical books. Gee, what a coincidence. So you take and you test your body. Now your body's supposed to be 6.8. It's not supposed to be acid. It's not supposed to be alkaline. It's supposed to be balanced. And I can give you several book references on that. One of them is Prescriptions for Nutrition and Healing by James Bach. What you want to do is go look up the symptoms of alkalosis. This is going to tie to the contrails. I'm getting the chemtrails. I'm getting there. And what you want to do to dissolve your biochip is go get acid-forming vitamins and bring yourself back to 6.8. Drop yourself to 6.7 for a week, and the biochip will not hold together because it's held together by alkalinity, and it will fall apart. You got to go from your 7.8, bring yourself to 6.8, down to 6.7, hold yourself there for a week, and the chip will fall apart. Now, this is easier said than done, because if you start checking your water, not only bottled water that you get at your local stores, but your drinking water, alkalinity is going through the ceiling. You're starting to find the same pesticide, ethylene dibromide, in your drinking water as you're finding from your chemtrails. And we've been all over the country. We've been home 2 weeks in the last 6 months, and we have been testing water, and they're all coming up alkaline. So you're going to have to really find something to pull out your alkaline and pull out your pesticide in order to get pure water, or you won't be able to bring yourself down to 6.8.
Are you testing blood or urine?
Saliva. All you got to do is spit on the piece of paper. Bottom line. Now, a lithium chip, everybody will probably recognize this real quick. This is the animal chip. It's about a grain of rice between a man's fingers, uncooked grain of rice. This is all back on our video. You can get these pictures. It shows the complexity of the lithium chip, just basic diagrams. This is a lithium chip x-rayed under the skin. You can find rounded edges. I wanted to go into. This is a Brazilian television commercial that happened 2 years ago. This is on our website. And here's the man putting the microchip in his ankle. Here's a close-up. Here's the chip next to a regular hypodermic needle. This is half a grain of rice. This is 60s technology, what they were doing to us in the 60s in America. And it shows on their website, on Brazilian Television's website, if you got the number, you can look it up on your home computer, like I was talking about earlier. So that's a lithium chip. Now, lithium chips are X-rayable, and I talk to X-ray technicians that see hundreds and hundreds a week. There are millions in the American public. And a lot of problems with a lithium chip is lithium poisoning, where you start to get lesions, you can start to get immune problems. Those all come from lithium chips. What a coincidence. So let me tell you a little bit about chemtrails and how this all ties together. I'm going to recommend this magazine, and you can get Will Thomas's books next to our table back there. But this is the Free American magazine. It's April '99. And it's a whole issue on chemtrails. It goes into the testing of chemtrails, goes into World Weekly sources, and it goes into some of the latest stuff on chemtrail. Great set of documents for the average person you can hand to a friend and say, here's it analytically analyzed in a lab. Now, let me tell you a lot about chemtrails in a short period of time. First of all, chemtrails, I was on Art Bell on the 2nd. I got 700 email, probably 300 or 400 pictures in 49 states and several provinces of Canada that have happened in the last week of chemtrails. Not to mention several reports of them happening out here yesterday at 6, this morning, and last night. Gee, what a coincidence. We're having a conference. Could they possibly want to douse us? Anyway, what is a chemtrail? A chemtrail is made up of 3 components, not 2, 3. And the reason why I know this is I talked to a biologist in the state of Alabama who happened to make up some of the concoctions for the chemtrails. What a coincidence. He came and saw me. He told me number 1 is ethylene dibromide. Now, what is ethylene dibromide? It's a pesticide. What is a pesticide? It is an alkaline-based chemical that will go through your skin and lungs. It takes high concentrations of alkalinity through your skin and lungs. Gives you alkalinity poisoning, which gives you upper respiratory problems, and it drives the microchip. Plain and simple. Number 2 component is the biological warfare that's going on, which they're releasing different types of bacteria in the air, which comes up with different diseases. Now, they've been doing this since 1942, aerial spraying. Salt Lake was sprayed 80 miles from there, and they had herds and herds of cattle die. This is in the Rockefeller report, which you can get on the web, or it was 1986 report before Congress. Senator Ted Kennedy and Rockefeller presided. And they went into all the different experiments and how they had logged them in the World Health Organization, which is the only place they really have to log them, including LSD, ELF, microwave, radiation, and chemical. So a good way to get rid of the biological is to keep yourself balanced, because the biological, the bacteria they're dropping, only thrives in alkalinity. Of course, I'm going to recommend colloidal silver and a couple of things to purify yourself, but that's not my expertise, and I let the health people do that. But stay away from anything that is alkaline, because it feeds this bacteria, and anybody that's alkaline, the bacteria goes rabid, as I like to call it. And then the third makeup of a chemtrail is part of the Genome Project. Now, the Genome Project, which was on public broadcasting, is where they have an aerosol spray that's able to change the DNA structure, being able to move and manipulate the DNA structure, to be able to change the cellular level to cancer, Lou Gehrig's disease, whatever disease they want to drop on you. Now, there are 50 states. Each state is experimenting with different parts of the Genome Project. Each one is spraying their citizens with different parts of the Genome Project. So you're finding different diseases in different parts of the country. We're finding throat cancer in certain parts and blood diseases in another part, and so on. And it all lines up with the different states' projects. What a coincidence. Of course, you all knew that.